Hello, this is Dodie from Deliberate Aging. Welcome to my podcast. Today I have the privilege of interviewing Gary Porter, who I met at the Fred Astaire Dance Studio in Montville, New Jersey several years ago, where we were both taking lessons with our spouses. Now, Gary is one of those people with an extreme love of life. He's enthusiastic, he's positive, and has lots of fun to be around. So he changes the mood in a room when he enters. So that's why I'm super excited that he agreed to join me today. So Gary, welcome to my podcast.
Thank you very much. Those are very kind words you shared about me.
All true, yes. So Gary, as to get started, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, and if you're comfortable, please tell us how old you are.
Well, I am comfortable, so I'm going to start with that. I just turned 70 this past November and had a wonderful party with friends and family and their children and created a lot of joy and happiness for me. I'm married 41 years this December. I have two married sons and one grandson. Many years ago, I got a PhD in chemistry, and I am an educator.
Okay, so you are an educator, which means I'm assuming that you're still working even at the age of 70, which typically people have retired by that time. What keeps you going?
Well, let's start by saying I'm a college chemistry professor at a community college in New Jersey. I've been in higher education for 40 years, 1/3 as a college administrator and approximately 2/3 of it teaching. So, you might ask the question, after 40 years, isn't that enough? Are you tired of what you're doing? And the answer is no. It's no, because I love what I do. I'm well respected by my students, and I'm well respected by the college administration, who from time to time asks me to do things to help the college. And when I say I'm well respected by my students, I also have to share that I really and truly cherish and appreciate the time I get to spend with them in the classroom and outside the classroom. They're typically from poor and low middle class families. Many of them are first generation immigrants to the United States, and for the most part, they're very hardworking. They have 1 and 2 jobs, and sometimes families, and they're very dedicated to their works. And I appreciate that they want to take classes with me, and I appreciate the time they spend with me as we talk about their futures and how they can create success for themselves.
So would you say it's your life's purpose to not only teach chemistry, but also to guide your students?
Oh my goodness, yes. It's one of the best things about my job. Early on, at a 4-year college where I started my career, I used to advise and help students get into medical, dental schools, various professional schools. When I went to a poor community college in Paterson, New Jersey, which is a inner city, I was instrumental in putting programs in place to help those students access careers in the health professions. And now that I'm back in the classroom, in many ways, I like to think of this: if a student comes into my office with help with chemistry, they're trapped, because I'm going to be asking them, what are their plans when they graduate? What are they going to do afterwards? Have they considered what I like to call a plan B? A lot of times you'll talk to people and they'll say, this is what I want to do. This is what's important. And I got to do this. I got to do that. And and I'm very much about saying to people, well, what are you going to do if that doesn't work? What is your plan B? Because that's what happened to me when I was in school. I was very much, thought I was going to be a dentist. I was going to college. I was going to get into dental school. And, looking back, I would have made a miserable dentist. And I was very lucky to get my plan B, which was to go into higher education and teach chemistry.
Okay, great. I love that answer. So I feel like you are so full of energy and enthusiasm. What do you do to take care of yourself? I mean, what is your secret?
Well, I find that the key is to, every day maintain my happy disposition. And that's not always easy. One of the things I've found over time is that there's lots of things in life that can tend to aggravate you, and you can't get rid of them because they're always popping up. And the trick is, I find, is to limit the time that you spend in that aggravated state, or that you let those things aggravate you. I'm reminded of something my grandmother once said to me when I was just getting into my teens. I was depressed one day because I said to her, Grandma, I always got problems. There's always something in my life that gets me down, and I just want to have a few minutes where I can be happy. And she said to me, Gary, grow up. Everybody's got problems all the time, and and you should get used to having problems. In fact, if all of a sudden you find you don't have problems, that's an unnatural state. There's and and sometimes when everything's going great and I don't have problems, I'm like, all right, when's the next one coming? It's my grandmother convinced me it's unnatural to be in a state where you're always happy and you don't have problems. Another thing that I have that I call are rules of engagement for friends and family. Um, there are certain things that I will do with certain members of the family, and other things I won't. I have one family member who, um, when we go out to a restaurant, it's very difficult to split a check with them. So the simple rule of engagement that makes both of us happy is we always ask for separate checks the minute we sit down. And that's just a little thing that, a little rule that I follow with respect to that family member that avoids a lot of stress in my life. I, I'll tell you, I have high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, and I also had a bout with cancer about 5-10 years ago. And I'm very conscious of what I eat to moderate those effects. And sometimes one comes up, one comes down, and I think because of that, I was able to lose some weight, and all of that has helped an awful lot. And the last thing, and you sort of mentioned it earlier, is I try to get some exercise. And the exercise that I get right now is with dancing.
Hmm.
I love it. It's a great social uh, outlet. My wife does it also, and I get to meet great people, and I have wonderful friends that I've made through that.
Hmm. Okay, great. So, do you have any other hobbies?
I do. I part of part of me developing hobbies came from me understanding something about myself. And years ago, I had one of these personality tests, and it came out very interesting. And it was so interesting that nobody believes the results. The results said that I was 50% extrovert and 50% introvert. which means that I need to balance both types of hobbies and things I do in my life. So, one of the things I do is I'm a world traveler. I've been to Asia, Africa, the Egyptian pyramids, all over Europe, South America, Alaska, and I've got great trips planning coming up. And I love the traveling, and it's something I'm always thinking about the next exciting place to go to. I've mentioned dancing. And again, that's an extrovert activity, and I enjoy that. But when it comes to recharging, I need to feed that introvert side of myself. So what will I do? Well, I'll play some games on the computer, very quietly, sitting myself, open up the laptop, and I'll diddle around on that, and that relaxes me. I'll also play maybe a one-person board game, working things out, thinking them, and that quiet activity helps me. The other thing that I've done from time to time is paint models. Again, singular activity. I do it for myself. I don't know that I'm a world-class painter, but that quiet solitude helps bring me inner peace. And now that I've got a grandson, I'm not painting anything for myself, but if I can come up with an excuse to paint something for him, I'm always happy to do so. And in fact, I painted a few things, a few soldiers that he got for Christmas this year.
Okay, that's interesting. So it sounds like you keep yourself quite busy outside of work. You have a very full life.
There's no doubt about it. I rarely a week goes by when I don't know, when I have to sit around and say, what am I going to do next? I always got something coming up, and I've got some things on my calendar scheduled out as far as January of 2027, and I really like life like that.
Okay. So I have a question for you here. Our dance
Yeah.
studio had a murder mystery party several months ago. And in advance, they gave us all the notes as to which role we were going to play. And we had to keep them a secret and try to let people figure out who we were playing, the character we were playing. And of course, they aptly picked you to be the murderer. And you did a fabulous job. So, did you ever have any aspirations to be an actor?
Well, that's a fascinating question. I am an actor. My performances occur every week. I step in front of the classroom and I teach chemistry. I mean, chemistry, most people would say, is boring, and oh my God, I have to take this class. And to make it successful, I it takes all of my extrovert and my talent for explaining things and my comfort getting up in front of people that has really worked well for me in the classroom. So I think of myself as an actor, and I've been acting for the last 40 years with performances, you know, 10, 15 times a week in front of my students.
Hmm. I think your students are very lucky to have you.
Well, I, I like to think of it as we're lucky to have each other.
Okay. I like that. Okay, so you've traveled extensively, and you and your wife Beth love that, and
Hmm.
extensively outside of the U.S. Have you noticed any cultural differences on the topic of aging? So, for example, I know in some cultures, aging populations are revered, whereas in the U.S., it's not quite so much like that.
I find, for example, when I traveled in China and Vietnam and Cambodia, I was struck by the number of older adults in the park participating in various, stretching exercises, Tai Chi, whatever they call them. And it just impressed me with the vast number of people who do that. When I visited homes in Eastern Europe, one of the things that struck me was the three generational families living under one roof. Sometimes I would do these family visits, and it might be, the main people in the house might, the father, the mother, and the child, but the grandmother is the one who's hosting the event for us travelers to, participate in. I question whether, the American lifestyle of, two people working, children being sent to daycare centers, parents being placed in homes and facilities is ideal for our way of life. And I guess now I'm more open to consider alternate strategies for getting old and alternate strategies for family, than is traditional now in the United States. The traveling has become very mind expanding for me.
Hmm, very interesting. So we're talking about getting older, and our bodies and our minds change. And so, what are the most significant changes you've noticed, and how have you dealt with it?
Okay. Well, one of the changes uh, that I find is that it's harder for me to sleep at night. I believe I may have some sleep apnea. At least my children are arguing that I need to go and get tested for it. I get up too many times during the night. Sometimes I have to sleep in a chair. But I think the on the upside, and it doesn't bother me at all. I can nap at the drop of a hat, anywhere, anytime, and any place. And and I think between with that ability, I'm also able to get the sleep I need. Could you repeat the question again? I know I went off on this
Yeah,
tangent.
yeah. I just said as we age, we have changes going on
Oh,
in both our bodies and our minds. And what have you noticed personally?
okay. So So in terms of um, my body, my joints have just recently started bothering me. So I have to be careful with if I take a lesson dancing, whether I'm going to dance hard for 50 minutes. I don't know that I can do that anymore, but it doesn't stop me from doing what I do in terms of progressing and becoming a better dancer, but I'm more conscious of the limitations of my ability to move. And because of that, I'm trying to add more exercise in in my life. And I've got a big project that I'm working on for my college. It ends in March, and I vowed that in addition to doing physical therapy, which has helped an awful lot with my joints and being able to move, that I've got to come up with a regular exercise routine that works for me. I can't just rely on sporadically going on a trip and doing a lot of movement or dance lessons. I know I need to do something else. I have high blood pressure. I have the, uh, type 2 diabetes, and it's as I get older, it's a struggle to watch my salt, watch my sugar, watch my salt, watch my sugar, don't eat too much. And um, keeping that balance so that all of those numbers that tell you you're not healthy stay at a good place, become more difficult. But I think one of the things I've found is that you know, every day that I can keep my salt down and my blood pressure down, every day that I can consume less sugar and keep my blood glucose down. I notice that that's one more day that I don't have to struggle to bring it down because it went up. and I can kind of plateau at the level of control that I currently have. Like for most of my life, I've had trouble maintaining my weight. Somewhere in my 30s, 30s to 40s, I put on 50 pounds, and I stayed that way until I was in my early 60s. And then some things happened that were beyond my control. And the happy thing was that I lost 50 pounds. Well, right now, my goal in life is now that I'm at a good weight to keep it within a 5 pound range, because what I'm really good at is losing 2 or 3 pounds.
Mm.
So if I go up 2 or 3 pounds, I know I could stay focused on it for 2 or 3 weeks, and I can bring it down again. Whereas if I had to lose 40 pounds, there's no way. I wouldn't know what I'd have to chop off a leg in order to lose 40 pounds.
So does that mean that you're consistently monitoring your weight, for example, so that you
Absolutely.
catch it at 2 points, 2 pounds?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I am consistently monitoring. I mean, I go to a chiropractor, and, whenever I visit, once every 2 weeks, and whenever I visit her, she'll tell me, oh, you're going up, oh, you're going down. I mean, sometimes she said to me, Gary, you're a pound under, that 5 pound range. And then, oh my goodness gracious, I go dancing out of her place, and maybe I'll have ice cream that night. So
Is that your happy food? Ice cream?
yeah, I'll have my happy food. I mean, it's not much more than a little bit of vanilla, but because I got to watch my sugar.
Yeah.
But again, occasionally I can reward myself and not have to go crazy losing the 2, 3 pounds. But I think that's a really good key, is that once you get wherever you are, like right now, I'm at the weight that I was when I graduated college, or pretty close to it. I it's so easy, or it's worth the effort to stay focused on keeping yourself within that narrow range.
Hmm. Got it. I agree. Okay.
Yep.
So now, what advice would you give to anybody listening to this podcast on how to stay healthy and get the most out of their life as they age?
I think the easiest thing, well, let me put it this way. It's a balancing act. Um, no one thing you need to do to stay healthy and be active over your years. But I think the number one thing, and I think the easiest one, is your attitude. Waking up in the morning and thinking happy thoughts, listening to good music on the radio, thinking about the people that make you happy, and then pushing out of your life as fast as you can all the things that aggravate you, all the things that disappoint you. Is probably the number one. And then the other two, I mean, it's not rocket science. It's nutrition and how much exercise you get, watching what you eat, not overindulging in anything. My father used to say moderation in everything, and that's a great way to look at nutrition, is not too much of anything, and a little bit of a diversity is a good way to eat. And the last one, which I'm not as good as I should be, is exercise. I know I need to exercise, and I watch that. And in fact, the best thing for me during the pandemic was at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. My wife would look at me and say, "Gary, get up, stop doing your work. We need to go for a walk for an hour." Oh, we did that, 6 days a week. I think I was at my best, healthiest by just getting up and going for a walk in the neighborhood. And I think if I could get back to doing even more of that, I would be even healthier. And it was one of the things that helped me lose that first 10 pounds on my journey to lose the 50. So again, the triad: attitude, nutrition, and exercise.
Okay, I like it. And I also like the fact that you're still carrying on to the advice given to you by your grandmother and your father.
Oh yes.
Nice. So it's timeless. You said it's not rocket science. It's timeless advice that passes on through the ages and it never expires, right?
Exactly. And I passed on, that advice to my children. I know they're only half listening to me now because I'm at the age where they don't think I know anything anymore. But at some point, they will think I'm a smart guy again. And I think some of the things I've been trying to tell them that my parents and my grandparents told me, will help them with their lives.
Hmm. Okay, so what's next for Gary? What are your plans for the future? Do you plan to retire? Maybe where are you going in January of 2027 on your travels? Or maybe a dance comp? Is there any of this in your future?
Okay. So what was the first part of that question?
Well, just what's next for Gary? What's in the future?
Okay.
Do you plan to retire?
So the answer to the question is twofold. Yes, I definitely plan to retire. But no, I don't know when.
Okay, okay.
All right. I
Mhm.
I think I think it will happen when there are more things outside of education that I want to spend more time with. And and I'm not there yet. So I will retire. I promised my wife I'll retire, but I don't have a date on it. What's coming up for me in the near future? Well, I've got another trip planned, and I'm leaving in about 3 or 4 days. And it's an interesting cruise. I like cruises because I like the idea of not having to pack my and repack my bags through a trip. I like waking up and being someplace else. So we originally started the idea for this January where we'd go for a cruise around Spain and then 2 stops in London and we'd fly home from London. And we were good with that for a year and a half. And then I said, I don't go back teaching in spring of 2025 for another 2 weeks. I bet you we can do something else once we're already in London.
Mhm.
And I looked at it and I said, well, where is the ship going next? And the ship is going next from London all the way to the northern part of Norway. And one of the things that encouraged us to do this is that we found out that this year is a high point year for the sun to be spewing out what the sun spews out and generating northern lights, the aurora borealis. So that's where we're off to. We're going to be going from sunny, warm Spain at 50 degrees to freezing Norway, where there is no sunlight, and the temperatures are going to be hovering between 0 and 10. So we're going to have to pack, very different clothes for these two things. But I became more interested in seeing astrological events when in April my wife and I and my sister-in-law drove upstate to New York to catch the solar eclipse. And I said, wow, this is really something. So I said, maybe, not just going to see a country and people, just trying to, see what the earth or the world is producing. Might be fun too. So second half of the trip, we're going to be in Norway for about a week and a half. And then we come home in late January.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, fun trip. So,
Yeah.
how about any dance plans?
I yes, I when I come back because I'm missing some major events is I've decided that I'm very much not just a teacher but I like to learn, and initially in the spring I want to learn more steps at this what they call a silver level, because again, I like to learn, and I find that the curriculum um, has a purpose, and the purpose helps in terms of my ability to lead, my ability to twist and hold my body in very interesting ways. So for the first half of the year, I'm going to be moving to the final level in the silver area, and then once that's done, I'm looking forward in the fall to do a local competition in New Jersey. And then beyond that, I'm not sure that, once I get past October and that event, that I've got to rethink what I'm going to do next. I mean, part of it is that travel is my number one activity. So dancing at events takes a back seat to me going away and seeing different parts of the world.
Mhm. Got it. Well, you said something very interesting about dance that I'm totally on board with. I believe it's the best form of exercise because not only do you work your physical body, but you're working your brain, your mental body, because you have to memorize steps and memorize patterns and stuff. So that combination for me is just the best form of exercise, I think.
And growing up as a young boy, I found I had very, very poor hand-eye coordination. So I was never going to play baseball. I was never going to play basketball. I was never going to play soccer. And I wasn't particularly graceful. Although I will tell you, something that didn't require a lot of hand-eye coordination was skiing. So because of that, because I skied most of my life, I developed very, very strong legs. And now that I'm dancing, I find that my coordination and my uh, muscle memory is very, very good. My instructor constantly is amazed at how quickly I can pick up something that's new and different, and I find that very exciting.
Yeah, it refers to neuroplasticity of the brain, right? Sorry, let me say that over. I got tongue
Yeah,
tied. It refers to neuroplasticity of the brain, that we can actually learn new things as we age.
yes, and not just individual things, but learn in different ways.
Hmm.
As an educator, I know that, people have different learning styles. Some people are better when they hear, some people are better when they see, some people are better when they write things. And I find that with dancing, I've I've developed strength in a way of learning that I've never really had in the past. And it's interesting for me as a person, but also as an educator, knowing that I can help students learn that, yeah, I know you're not very good at writing things, but maybe if you tried doing more homework problems, you could learn better. Or if you listen to my videotapes on the lecture, you might get stronger at learning by listening.
Mm. Fascinating, really interesting stuff. I mean, this has been an amazing conversation. Your positivity and enthusiasm has come through with every word you've spoken, and I
Mhm.
thank you very much for joining me today.
One thing I'd like to share, if I could,
Yeah.
is I think it's important to leading a good lifestyle is your volunteer work. And I find that one of the things that adds a lot of joy and happiness to my life is the work I do for scouting. I raise and distribute money for camp scholarships. I recently learned how to go up to camp and teach little kids how to shoot BB guns and archery. And this is something I've been doing for the last 30 years with my son since I was young. And finding some way to give back to the community, church, school, or a soccer team, a baseball team. I think is one of those little things everybody should do. I mean, one of the things people have talked about with the greatest generation, the one before us, is they were the people that came back from the Second World War and wanted to give back to their communities, and these were the scoutmasters, the firemen, the policemen who were around when I was a young man, and I believe that this is something that everybody in every generation needs to grapple with and consider to lead a happy, healthy life.
I couldn't agree more. And there is scientific evidence out there that says that people that volunteer produce these hormones inside that help you with your longevity and to age better.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, really interesting stuff. Okay, well, Gary, this has been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. So, any closing notes?
I think remember the triad: attitude, nutrition, and exercise, and thinking about the things that feed into those. One of the things that I just said that helps feed into attitude is my volunteer work, and all things in moderation, and finding the way to exercise that you get some enjoyment and you can continue that. But if you're not good at exercising, well, for heaven's sake, try to do the other two. And if you're not good at nutrition and exercise, you can still do something about your attitude.
Mm-hmm.
So one is good, two is better, and three is best. And that's where I think I want to leave it.
Okay, well, that's very good. And I completely agree with everything you've said today. And thank you so much. And that's it for me.
All righty.
Okay.
Thank you for inviting me to do this, and I hope everybody has a wonderful day.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Bye, Gary.
Bye now.
Thanks for listening. This is Dodie from Deliberate Aging. Until next time, be well, friends. This podcast is presented solely for informational and educational purposes only. Use of information from this podcast is at the user's own risk. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of your physician or other qualified professional. We are not responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that may arise from use of this podcast.